Once you have either created your object or downloaded it from a website, it's time to use a slicer. I like to use XYZ Print. Once you open it up, you'll notice here that it's asking for a software update. There's a new software version. I always recommend updating the software whenever that pop-up appears. You want to make sure your software is up to date and ready to go. That way you don't run into any problems. So I'm going to update the software. It's going to run through. It's going to ask me to install. And then I'm going to reopen XYZ SweetMaker and click on XYZ Print. I always like to, whenever I turn my 3D printer on, I always like to calibrate it. It's really easy to do on this 3D printer. You just say calibrate. You push one button on the extruder. It does its calibration. When it's done, it says I'm done. You push the second button, and then you click finished. Click on the load icon, find my STL file, then click open. The file will then appear on my plane, and I'm ready to go. I can move the object around on the X, Y, and Z axes. I can turn it if I want. I can move it to a different part of the plate. I like to do that if one part of my plate maybe is a little bit in better shape than the others. I like to move it to a specific part. You see here as I'm moving it, the plane turns red. That means it's out of the print area. Another thing I like about this printer is I can auto-rotate it to save material. You'll see that's what's happened here. When I'm all ready to go, have everything rotated the place I want it, I want to make sure that it's landed down on the plane. If it's not landed, it will not print, so landing your object is very important. All right. Last but not least, it's time to do a couple settings. I always like to make sure I'm using the right filament. I want to use PLA filament. I usually always leave the speed as it is unless I need to go a little bit slower. And then I like to add supports for things that might need a little bit extra support. This one doesn't need support, but I'm going to add it anyway just so you can see. Your object will then appear as prepped for printing. On the right side, you'll see a little rectangle there. That's kind of like your ruler. And then last but not least, when you're ready to go, I always like to make sure that my filament is loaded in. I will load it, and it will extrude out some filament.